Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning rounds at Houston Medical Clerkship. I'm Dr. Faisal Khan. Today we have a very interesting presentation on cerebral amyloid angiopathy. It's a fascinating disease with a lot of implications for the patients and challenges for the treating physicians. Today we have Dr. Aswati. She's from SDM Medical College, Karnataka, India, aspiring to become a future neurologist. We wish her all the best and looking forward for your presentation, Dr. Aswati.
Thank you. So, cerebral amyloid angiopathy. It is characterized by deposition of amyloid beta peptide within the tunica media and adventitia of small to medium-sized arteries, and less frequently veins of the cerebral cortex and leptomeninges. So, the epidemiology, it most commonly occurs in individuals who are more than or equal to 65 years old. It's associated with dementia, and it's prevalent in 10 to 40% of elderly individuals without dementia, whereas 50 to 60% of elderly individuals with dementia. And it's seen in 80 to 90% of elderly individuals with Alzheimer's dementia. And there is a female predominance as well, and there is an increased incidence with hypertension. The pathophysiology is by the amyloid precursor protein, which is cleaved by the beta and gamma secretases into amyloid beta 42 and amyloid beta 40 peptides. So amyloid beta 42 is deposited in the cerebral parenchyma, which leads to formation of senile plaques, which causes Alzheimer's dementia, whereas amyloid beta 40 is deposited in the vessel walls, resulting in CAA. And the mechanism is thought to be due to impaired clearance of these peptides. And A-beta 42 is initially deposited in the tunica media and adventitia, and later in all the layers of the vessel wall, which causes loss of smooth muscle cells. So this is followed by disruption of the vessel wall, leading to microaneurysm formation and fibrinoid necrosis. So as you can see, the amyloid precursor protein is cleaved into amyloid beta 42 and amyloid beta 40. And amyloid beta 40 is our peptide which causes the CAA. So the normal degradation is by metallopeptidase enzymes, or it can be degraded by astrocytes and macrophages, or it can be transported by LDL receptor related protein 1 across the blood-brain barrier and through the lymphatic drainage, it's drained out. So this is a histopathology of the amyloid peptide deposition, and as you can see, due to the detachment of the tunica media from adventitia, there is a double barrel appearance, and also you can see the fibrinoid necrosis as well. This is a cerebral vascular amyloid beta deposition, which causes, as you can see, amyloid beta deposition or senile plaques causes the Alzheimer's dementia, and amyloid beta 40. That is amyloid beta 42, and amyloid beta 40 gets deposited in the vessel walls, so it can cause perivascular plaques causing dementia again. It can cause vascular dysfunction and pathological changes that causes a CA-associated vasculopathies, so that can cause circulatory disturbance and dementia, and can cause inflammation or angiitis as well. So all of these things lead to leukoencephalopathy, which is a chronic finding, and cortical microinfarction, and also it can lead to hemorrhage, which is intracerebral lobar macrohemorrhage, or it can be cortical microhemorrhage or cortical superficial siderosis, also focal convexity SAH. So these can lead to stroke. This can present as stroke. The classification, it can be sporadic or familial. So familial is caused by mutation of amyloid precursor protein gene, which is the most common cause. Other mutations involved are ASS peptide, ATTR peptide, PRPSC peptide, ABRI peptide, ADAN peptide, AGEL peptide. And sporadic CAA occurs in older individuals. Exact mechanism is not known. So the presence of alleles for upper lipoproteins, which is involved in the lipid transport, as we saw earlier, that is ApoE2 and ApoE4, has been found to be associated with the occurrence of intracerebral hemorrhage in CAA. And ApoE4 is associated with capillary cerebral amyloid angiopathy and CAA-related inflammation and also microhemorrhages, whereas ApoE2 is associated with cortical superficial siderosis. Both genes are associated with early recurrence of lobar ICH in patients with a past history of the same. This is a spectrum of cerebral amyloid angiopathy. So here we can see the lobar microbleeds in the MRI, and here as well. This is one type of presentation. And here you can see the lobar intracerebral hemorrhage, which you can see here as well. And cortical superficial siderosis is the deposition of hemosiderin on the cortex. So you can see the lining over here and over here as well. And white matter hyperintensity is also a presentation which usually occurs in the occipital lobes. Convexity subarachnoid hemorrhage can also occur, as you can see here, which is the subarachnoid hemorrhage that occurs along the sulci of the cortex. And MRI visible centrum, semioval, perivascular spaces are the spaces that occur in, as a result of chronic CAA. So clinical manifestation can be intracerebral hemorrhage, which is lobar ICH. In that, lobar ICH is the most common manifestation. It's different from deep ICH, which is usually caused by hypertension. It presents with focal neurologic deficits, headaches, and seizures, depending on the extent of hemorrhage. It can be cortical microbleeds, like we saw earlier, so which is associated with dementia, impaired executive function, and memory. Cortical superficial hemosiderosis, which can present similarly. Transient focal neurologic episodes, or TFNEs, are another presentation of CAAs. They are also known as amyloid spells. They present similarly to TIA, which is transient ischemic attack, with focal neurologic deficits and seizures, and also with migraine with aura. Then it can present as cognitive impairment. So when it presents with cognitive impairment, it can present in three patterns. That is gradual decline, where it can present with microhemorrhages, lobar lacunes, microinfarcts, and ischemic encephalopathy. It can present with a stepwise decline, which is recurrent lobar hemorrhages, and it can present as rapidly progressive decline, where there is cerebral amyloid angiopathy related inflammation, which is one subtype in the clinical presentation. And also as convexity SAH, recurrent transient spreading sensory and motor symptoms can be a presentation. Then inflammatory leukoencephalopathy presents with headache, seizures, rapidly progressive cognitive decline, and behavioral changes. It can also present as Alzheimer's dementia. So for the diagnosis, we have modified Boston criteria. In that the definitive CAA is full post. These are based on post-mortem findings. So and also MRI. So full post-mortem examination reveals lobar cortical or cortical subcortical hemorrhage and pathological evidence of severe cerebral amyloid angiopathy. That concludes that is definitive CAA according to this criteria. It can be probable CAA with supporting pathological evidence. That is clinical data and pathologic tissue. That is evacuated hematoma or cortical biopsy specimen demonstrate a hemorrhage as mentioned above, and some degree of vascular amyloid deposition. So this doesn't have to be post-mortem finding. Then it can be probable CAA. That is pathologic confirmation is not required. And patient is more than or equal to 55 years old, and appropriate clinical history is present in the patient. And MRI findings demonstrate multiple hemorrhages restricted to lobar, cortical, or cortical subcortical regions. That is, cerebellar hemorrhage is included in that, of varying sizes and ages without another cause, or single lobar cortical or subcortical hemorrhage and focal, that is 3 or less sulci, or disseminated, that is more than 3 sulci, cortical superficial siderosis without another cause. Possible CAA is when the patient is 55 years or older, appropriate clinical history is present, and MRI findings demonstrate single lobar cortical or cortical subcortical hemorrhage without another cause, or focal or disseminated cortical superficial siderosis without another cause. So for diagnosis, we can use CT or MRI for macrohemorrhages as we usually do, and we can also use gradient echo T2 MRI susceptibility weighted imaging as well. This is useful for detection of microhemorrhages and cortical siderosis. A posterior distribution of white matter hyperintensity is a possible marker for CAA. Like I said, white matter hyperintensity usually occurs in the occipital lobe. So amyloid PET is another type of scan that detects both parenchymal and cerebrovascular deposition of amyloid. So this is based on the uptake of Pittsburgh compound, which is called PIV. So this is the amyloid PET scan. Here you can see the increased uptake in Alzheimer's disease, CAA, and you can't find it in hypertensive angiopathy. Then CSF A beta measurements also can be used as a diagnostic modality. So there is reduced levels of A beta 40 and A beta 42 in patients with cerebral amyloid angiopathy, which suggests trapping of these peptides in the cerebral vasculature. The treatment, as when it comes to the treatment, there is no specific treatment modality which is available, but according to the presentation, we can treat accordingly. As if the patient presents with ICH, the standard treatment strategies are followed, including a neurosurgical intervention. And if a patient presents with TFNE, we should be careful that we should not, since it presents similarly to TIA, we should not treat the patient with anticoagulants, because it can result in subsequent hemorrhage. So anti-epileptics and anti-migraine medications such as levetiracetam and topiramate can be used in this case. So